today from Galatians 6, verse 6 through 10. And it says, "Let him who is taught the word share in all good things, which him who teaches. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will reap. For he who sows in his flesh will reap of the flesh, or will of the flesh reap corruption. But he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all, especially those who are of the household of faith." Many times we read, "Do not be deceived, God is not mocked, for whatever a man sows, that he will also reap." Many times we see that as a threat, but I see it as a beautiful promise. It's so easy to get caught up where you are and to get comfortable in the process of sowing. You know, to sow means to disperse or to give. And it becomes easy for us as Christians to constantly sow and to give. But what we forget is that sowing and reaping are both action words. And it can be difficult sometimes for us to change our actions from that of sowing to that of reaping. To reap means to cut and gather. We've reached seasons in our lives where instead of dispersing, it's time for us to cut and gather some things. It's time for us to cut some things off in our lives. And this is not the same as pruning. This is cutting the good stuff, you know, cutting so that we can yield the fruit. Pruning is sometimes easier because we're cutting the bad stuff off. But when we cut the good stuff so that we can gain the fruit, it becomes a little more difficult. I realize more and more that success is a promise for those who work hard. But there are a lot of hard-working, unsuccessful people. And I think that the key is they forget to reap. So what does it mean to cut and gather? In a society where it's so easy for us to connect, it's so hard for us to connect. It's hard for us to actually touch out and call people. I myself find texting, Facebook messaging, tweeting, talking to somebody via their wall is a whole lot easier than picking up the phone and calling somebody. However, in order to reap the full benefits of your harvest, you have to cut and gather people. There are people that you're going to need in your life, and there are people that you're going to need in order to receive the fullness of what God has promised you. That goes the same for our church. In order to grow our church, in order to grow our ministry, we're going to have to become a church that reaches out and touches people, that reaches out and builds families. I'm talking to myself as well, that connects via face-to-face conversation or phones conversations rather than using the guise of social media. I think that another important thing is we have to change our behavior. Reaping is not going to look the same as it is sowing. You know, we have to physically change our behavior. We have to mentally change our mindset to line up with whatever it is that God has called us to do. If we're growing a business and we've sown in the time and the energy sitting under somebody, learning and sowing into their ministry or their business or their family or whatever it is that God has called us to do, when it comes time to harvest, we have to change our action. We have to then take what we've learned and sometimes cut off from the thing that is comfortable to us, and then we have to gather our own people and grow ourselves. So I hope that word is for somebody. A few more scriptures. Galatians 6:9 says, "And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart." Luke 6:38 says, "Give, and it will be given back to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be put into your bosom. For with the same measure that you use, it will be measured back to you." So, give and give a lot. The more we give, the more we get. But make sure that when you're giving, don't forget to take the time to reap. Amen.